very smooth and washed out, just blurry shapes, and you tend to lose some of the noise you usually get with if you blur it in camera. Like if you photograph something out of focus, it's still grainy. The natural grain of the camera still applies. And what are you doing now?
I want to test this out.
Okay. All right.
So okay, I've got this box, and I made a mistake. I did it on the same layer.
No, doesn't matter. At least for not for this blur. You can still do it on the same layer.
Well, let me just say Command J, and then I will hit my background layer. I will hit Command Delete, fill that. That way, all we're dealing with is this. I'm going to turn it into a smart object. Hit V for the move.
To be quite honest, a solid rectangle perhaps isn't the best way to demo this, because you can't add any bokeh for this one, really. In lens blur, because in lens blur you can also add like highlights and everything. Can't really do that with just a rectangle. It won't look great. But that's okay. It's okay.
Welcome to Adobe Live. So what you're saying is you would use the lens blur more on a photograph.
Well, hang on. Let me see if I have my Photoshop ready.
Well,
I mean, this is just bonus time, right? If you just came for Sean, you can just go to the next stream. Let's see. Do I have? Oh, yes, of course I do have one. And I have to download it. Nope. No, I won't download that right now. Okay, this one could work too. There you go.
Okay, let me turn it into a smart object. And so we go filter, blur gallery.
No, not blur gallery.
Nope.
Blur.
Blur.
Yeah, lens blur.
And
it doesn't work on smart objects apparently. Interesting.
Okay. Let's rasterize it.
Don't rasterize enough. Lens blur. There we are. Also, that's a very long arm. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
He's been doing a lot of selfies, stretching it out.
Now you can see we have on the right, we have the radius, which is just how much you blur it. We have the blade curvature, which is great for highlights. And we also have rotation, which is just if you have like very low aperture blades, only 3 or 4, then rotation will make a difference. Doesn't really do it for hexagon because you can't really see if you rotate the hexagon. And now the next sliders are my favorite because you can add highlights. And this one is great if you have like very small details that are super bright and you want to add some bokeh, which naturally happens. You may have to decrease this threshold. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's quite a bit too much. The brightness of those highlights probably was a bit too much. But yeah, this works really well if you have a dark image, like a night sky or a city skyline that has like some bright windows. And in there you can go in and change all that. And the noise for the noise slider is okay. Can at least bring back some of the grain that you would otherwise lose if you blur the image. But I honestly like the grain of the field blur much more. This one has more settings. But I think that's maybe something for a different stream. And perhaps also for a different image than this one.
No, I actually have not played with it much, so this is really interesting. Usually I add my own bokeh.
And even better, if you have a look up there on the right, you can see the depth map. If you have some info, this usually gets exported by 3D apps, but you can also paint it manually. This lens blur will accurately blur certain parts of the image based on how far it is away from the camera. So basically what you would do for this one, you would take an image, you would select the person, make it a bit brighter, and a gradient to the background, and then Photoshop if you were to blur it in the lens blur, will only slightly blur the foreground and blur the background even more. So if you have a depth map, which there are great tutorials on YouTube for that, then this one is also a great option. And it's more realistic than the good old box blur. Of course, the highlights, perhaps not the best, the best option
on this one, yeah.
But yeah, I think you get the idea.
Yeah, you know what? I actually love the highlights that it did on the C.
Yes.
So right. what I would have done here is I would have taken and cut the man out.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done this, add that Spoka and this effect on the C and the Ferris wheel, and had him on top of it.
Well, would you like me to show you how to do that? We have about 4 minutes, and I can do it in 4 minutes. If you want. If you don't, that's okay too.
Well, okay. Let me hit Command Z.
All
Let's
right.
get back to our original.
Okay. Take the select subject and select the person.
Okay. Okay. Select subject, not remove background.
Nope. Select subject.
Okay.
And now, once it has selected the person, create a layer mask based on that by just clicking on the layer mask icon. Now click on the main layer again, so we have not the mask, but the person selected on above.
Oh.
There we are.
Okay.
Go to the filter and open that lens blur again. Under blur.
Yeah.
And lens blur. And now, if I remember correctly, we can select under depth map source, we can select the layer mask. There we are. And now, what hopefully, oh, we have reversed it.
We've reversed.
Now the person is blurry. I guess you have to invert it first. But now, as you can see, if you increase, or you can invert it, I guess. Just
Command I.
Or click on the invert button. That would also work. There's like a one. Blur and lens blur. All right, there we are. And now, hopefully, yes, of course, layer mask. And now you can see the person is still in focus while the background very much isn't. And now if you add the highlights again, hopefully they should only be added to the background. And you have to decrease the threshold slightly, probably even more. This just defines at which brightness highlights will start to get added. So you can now see at the background there are already some highlights. There we are.
Well, this is a great tip.
I think you just have to remove the brightness a bit, get that a bit down.
All the way down. Remove the brightness?
Get rid of yes, there we go. And increase the threshold a bit. I mean, not all the way. And increase the brightness slightly. Just about a quarter way, perhaps. And there we are. You can see some changes in the background.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's it for today. All right. That's everything I wanted to tell you about in the lens blur. So, with that, I think we're done for real this time. So I hope you excuse that very brief intermission.